Young people leading the fight to save the planet. But it's a battle they never asked for.
We didn't really do this. It's the earth we inherited.
And they'd sure appreciate a little help from their elders.
So instead of just saying you support the empowered young people, like go out there and do something, change something.
There are some adult allies with adult advice.
If we don't share with you what we know, you will move slower, you will make the same mistakes that we made.
How many minutes do you think all broadcast television news spent covering the climate crisis in 2017?
Other teenagers are guiding grown-ups through a climate change museum.
Clean energy is probably the most common solution to the climate crisis that you guys know about.
Paddle, 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 and pop up.
And out in the Rockaways, while little kids are taught how to surf, they're also learning how mountains of trash are filling the ocean.
Are you grossed out? Are you mad? Great.
This week, an existential crisis met head-on by the young and the restless.
The United Nations Climate Summit attracts dignitaries and scientists from across the globe. It also garners lots of media attention. But here in Brooklyn, we've got Uprose, and they've convened the 7th New York City Climate Justice Youth Summit, attracting young people from across the country to put their minds together and work for solutions to some of the biggest problems facing our neighborhoods and our planet. So Chelsea, I've been to a lot of summits. Some of them even say they're for youth, but never have I been at a summit that's for youth, with youth, running the thing. But that's what you guys have managed to do.
This is actually my first time organizing an event, especially this large. A lot of youth are still finding their voice and finding their place, and especially our youth, a lot of them are focused on surviving. Because a lot of these people, they have to work themselves to death just to put a penny in their pocket, but to come to a movement space and be able to see, oh, well, this is what we're fighting for, and the communities that we're fighting for look like us. It's really awesome.
I wonder what you think young people learn from the older generations and how it works for the generations who came before to be working in concert with youth.
A lot of the information I get from my elders is just so we don't end up reinventing the wheel. We're really trying to create a vinyl leadership.
Because if we don't share with you what we know, you will move slower, you will make the same mistakes that we made, and we need to move faster.
There is no planet B. 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 There is no planet B.
Demagogue, cover girl, voice of a generation. What began as one young girl's 3-week vigil outside the doors of the Swedish parliament has evolved into a full-fledged global initiative.
You all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
Locally, students from the New York City area have been striking every Friday for nearly a year. And what they may be missing in class, they're more than making up for in real-world experience, putting their values into action.
Climate crisis is a generational issue, but it requires intergenerational cooperation.
It's our responsibility and it's also our burden, because it's like, we didn't really do this. It's the earth we inherited, and even now, like the people who are doing it are, like the top 100 corporations and the elected officials who aren't giving attention to the climate crisis. And like the youth movement hasn't risen out of choice; it's risen out of necessity.
Stop fossil fuels.
Of adults who are like, we really support what you're doing, but they don't do anything beyond that. It's like they say they support us. It's like, well, that's great, thank you, but not that helpful. Yeah. You can vote, you can do this, you can strike, you can lobby these politicians, like you can do all of this and more. We're full-time students. We don't have half the resources you have. So instead of just saying you support the empowered young people, like go out there and do something, change something.
Yes. I want all of you to understand what my generation is going through. I want you to process that, and I want you to become a climate activist.
It's also like caring about the environment has become such a privilege.
Yeah.
Also, if you are trying to feed your family paycheck by paycheck, you don't have time to care about the environment because it seems like such a distant issue, because the media paints it as such a distant issue. So when you tell frontline communities, people of color, that their daily lives are being affected by climate change and how they're being affected by climate change, now they're more susceptible to join the movement. But how are you going to ask them to care about something that when they have 1,000 things to care about?
When I was 12 years old, I went back to India, which is my native country. And was hospitalized because I couldn't breathe. No one should lose the right to breathe on this planet.
Changing your mindset from excessive consumerism to sustainability is about putting frontline communities in the forefront and also enabling a just transition for them to switch their jobs. If they're working in factories and those kind of jobs that are left to lower income communities, and then you want to wipe out all the factories, they're going to have no jobs. So then you have to make a path for them to get to renewable jobs safely without endangering their families. So it is very complex, and that's why when you talk about the climate crisis, you're really talking about everything, including intergenerational issues. Like we are going to be the most affected, and our children.
It's an issue that it covers every single aspect of our life, because it covers housing, transportation, jobs, education, food, everything that we do, everything we know.
We're gonna strike because our waters are rising. We're gonna strike because our people are dying. We're gonna strike for life and everything we love. We're gonna strike for you, will you strike for us? We're gonna strike for you, will you strike for us?
So yesterday I was at the climate strike and I saw a lot of people with a lot of different messages, and I'm wondering, just from your perspective as a person who's looking at climate justice, how it feels to sort of have to fight, number one, for the cause, and also sometimes have to fight just for visibility to be in the room when we're seeing so many people take the mantle of what you've been doing for a long time.
Well, the erasure of brown people's stories is nothing new. It can be kind of tiring, and a lot of activists I know are really feeling burnt out. But when we come into these spaces, especially we have people from all over the nation, and just to build and to be connected, even though a lot of erasure, especially with the UN climate strike, it was really whiteified. A lot of the mainstream environmentalism is really white, but we had our own climate strike and we got our coverage because we're equally as important, and we've been doing the work.
For folks from frontline communities, who might not even be aware that there are people who look like you out there doing the work, and they think, I have so many other concerns. If you could have a message or a point of entry for them to come into the fold, what would that be?
I would say this fight is for us and by us, and the only thing that we have to lose, well, we have nothing to lose. We're living, we're killing ourselves, and they're trying to kill us too. And we're fighting for communities that are local, that are livable, that are in tune with nature and where we actually come from in our traditions and our cultures.
Local and livable, even if your community happens to be an ocean.
Yeah, I definitely started surfing here in the Rockaways. I grew up here as well.
I've been surfing since I was a kid.
I've been surfing since I was 8 years old.
I have never felt anything as good as surfing a good wave with your best friends.
Rockaway is experiencing its renaissance right now. There's over $1 billion of investment that are coming into Rockaway. I think there's about 123,000 folks that have actually moved into the Rockaways between 2016 and 17. So that's a big jump. People are moving in because of the quality of life, it has a beach town feel, and then everybody wants to surf.
So from the time the beach opens in Memorial Day until just past Labor Day, the amount of trash and plastic that people leave on the beach is disgusting.
We see people like literally get up off their blanket and shake it out and walk away.
My wetsuit is filled with trash. There is a level of disrespect in our community because people come out and this is their, quote unquote holiday.
It happened at least 3 or 4 years ago that we started collaborating with Surfrider on beach cleanups. Something we wanted to do was get a hold of kids who didn't necessarily have access to our services or any other kind of like surf lesson services and expose them to something that could potentially change their lives.
So there's been the surf clinics that we do with Swim Strong. So we take kids, teach them how to swim, and then at the end of the swimming class, we do some surfing in the pool. And then in the summer, we take them out surfing.
For the past couple of years, we've been doing programming with them to help educate underexposed kids to the beach,
all right, guys,
ocean.
Let's go over the parts of the board, all right? So we know the reference points. Up here, we have the nose. Back here, we have the tail. The top of the board is called the deck. This part is super easy. All you really want to do is reach as far forward as you can, grab as much water as you can, nice and deep, pull back, all right? Just like how Mike is doing right there.
Oh, so it's paddle.
Paddle.
It's paddle, 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 and pop up.
There's a whole side of Rockways that doesn't really take advantage of the background they have. And as activists, it is our job to make sure that we connect those individuals and those families to the ocean so that they can take ownership of protecting it. Rockaway it's facing a lot of environmental concerns. It's a peninsula in New York City, it's a barrier island. Right now, the shoreline is going away every minute because of like the rising water. So the community itself is being threatened.
This community has been beat to death. We've been battling the Williams pipeline for quite some time.
The growing surfer community and the growing interest in surfing have actually promoted even more interest in environmental sustainability.
If you're not connected to the ocean and you live near it and you don't participate or engage with it, a protest about someone putting a pipeline in would be like foreign concept.
The youth program is one of the ways that we could actually connect the community into the ocean.
Consistent in the pop up, and then we'll take it to the ocean where it really matters. All right, guys, let's paddle. Big wave, come on, paddle, 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 hustle, hustle. Paddle.
All I can say is that I know that when I was a kid, there were no surf programs available to me or to anyone else my age. So learning was hard. You had to really be encouraged by your parents. You had to have the means to get to the beach. That's not something that every child has access to. Even kids within the Rockaways don't even know what's at their fingertips, what a great resource the ocean is.
The goal is that, oh, now I am interested about the ocean. I'm interested about, surfing. I'm gonna encourage my mom and my dad to support Surfrider causes and then to actually protect the ocean. Because the goal here is to create a coalition.
But Surfrider is basically the only way that I've seen members of the community come out and actively participate in something that they're not familiar with, and I think that's super important.
Surfing is the best. You might fall over a few times, but it'll still be fun.
Being in the ocean for the first time, or conquering waves, or learning how to swim is empowerment in itself.
And then there's gloves over there. Ask him for one. You only need one because the other one is like, you need a bag? You don't want to share a bag with your brother? Our focus for youth, it's all about the future. Right now, I think we have a lot of interest. What we don't have is we have to build a stronger pipeline for the future.
I don't know. That's a crab.
The kids are the only chance that we still have, as far as I'm concerned.
I disagree with people that just throw their garbage because birds can eat it and swallow it. It's bad for us to breathe in the garbage.
When you see chip bags and plastic bags from the bodega and straws, they're disgusted by it. And it's a beautiful talking point because they want to save the turtles, they want to save the dolphins, but then they also have to be the trash pickers of the ocean, and without them seeing that, you don't get it.
I found trash. My vision for the future is to figure out a way to get to the next step on how to activate youth that we are working right now and get them in the front lines, talking to their council members, to their congressional leaders.
Are you grossed out? Are you mad? Great. Welcome to the good fight. Let's do it.
The people at Uprose have been doing it for more than 50 years, organizing, advocating, and amplifying the voices of frontline communities. At their annual Climate Justice Youth Summit, young people from around the world and around the block shared ideas, encouragement, and even schooled an old guy like me on the realities of climate justice.
How do you think climate change interacts with mass incarceration? What is the relationship between climate change and mass incarceration, which is obviously what we're here to discuss. So what do you think?
Intimately
It's okay if you're I don't know, that's why I'm here.
I think.
Are you serious? Because I can't see it at all.
Oh, okay.
Really,
So,
I've never even thought of the things in the same breath.
So the wildfires
Right, in Cali.
California, women who are incarcerated are fighting.
Volunteer,
they don't get the insurance
Right.
if they die.
Their life is on the
They're
line.
paid $1 an hour.
30 seconds ago, I had not made the connection at all, and you just schooled me like that.
I want you guys to first of all identify one issue. It can be something that's happening currently in the news, it could be something that's happened in history, it could be something you know about in your community that you want to organize around.
I mean, policing itself is an environmental justice issue.
It keeps people in the city migrating and competing for resources.
So that's something that's actionable, that we can say we only want police who live in our community to police our communities.
So maybe one thing that can help focus this is a lot of folks who are returning from incarceration don't have access to good paying, livable jobs. And so I know that there are a lot of I'm thinking Earthbound is working with incarcerated folks.
Yes.
That's cooperative, looking at sustainable
Wait, so now we're
building.
thinking about it. I feel like that ties together reentry programs ties together all of the things.
So if the Wolf of Wall Street can have a second chance, why can't our community members have that same chance? So our focus is on returning citizens who are formerly incarcerated, and we're giving them not only the skills and training, but the ability to create their own worker-owned cooperatives. So having a coalition of create their own.
While the leaders of the new school of thought on environmental justice were busy conferring, on Governor's Island, some high schoolers were using an old school format to introduce some very current concerns.
This is the Climate Museum. It's actually the second museum devoted to climate in the entire world. And it's in New York City. It's on Governor's Island.
In this room, we break down the strategies to the climate crisis. So we categorize them as smart land use, clean energy, and energy efficiency. And kind of all the problems and solutions we have can break down into those 3 buckets.
What we're doing here is just trying to spread as much awareness as possible. Our exhibition is called Taking Action. So basically, we inform people about what's going on with the climate, what's preventing us from making a change, and then what they can do to actually help.
These foods over here are weighted depending on the amount of carbon emissions in grams that are produced in their shipment and growing. So if you pick up something like a banana, it's kind of heavy, but not so much. But then if you pick up a hamburger, it's very heavy, and that's because hamburgers, cows produce methane gas, and on top of that, cheese is very processed, and a lot of farms are in the middle of the country, so they need to be transported farther.
This is the Doom Room, and it's pretty much the obstacles to all the solutions you saw in the last room. And the 2 main headliners are that we're still doing business as usual, and that there's a climate silence, both in the media and in people's personal lives. Basically, people aren't talking about it enough. So if you look over here, we talk first about the climate silence. So we have these questions, then you can give an answer, and then I'll show you. How many minutes do you think all broadcast television news spent covering the climate crisis in 2017? It's really important that high schoolers are running the exhibit because people have been associating youth activism with the climate more and more recently, especially with Greta Thunberg. The youth has been really invested in the climate and have been making their voices heard as much as possible.
Hopefully after seeing the rest of the exhibit, you're ready to take some action, and we have apps over here that allow you to do that. So if you want to come over here and enter your name, we can get you started.
Older people are just more resistant to change, and I feel like that happens with many generations that get older. But it's always been when there's a huge problem facing the country or a certain generation, it's usually the youth that really gets involved first. I think a good example is Vietnam. When there was the Vietnam War, it was obviously a huge youth counterculture movement. And again, with the climate, it's now the youth getting involved, trying to make a change.
Clean energy is probably the most common solution to the climate crisis that you guys know about. And there are many different kinds, and the main ones are water, wind, and of course sunlight. This is a solar energy plant in Africa, and it uses 2 kinds of solar energy.
Older people are, I guess, checking out sooner than younger people, and younger people are going to have to deal with it longer. But the simple fact that younger people are young, they don't have as much influence in the government, so that's why it's important for younger people to persuade older people to make a change while they still can. How much do you think the fossil fuel industry donates to American political campaigns? It's $34 million in the 2015 to 2016 election cycle. And in that same year, that same time span, they received $29.4 billion in subsidies. So this is the climate change and the climate have obviously been a problem for a long, long time now. And recently, with all the youth activism, nationwide and around the world, more people are worrying about it, and especially the youth is trying to bring it to people's attention as much as possible. And you have people like AOC in Congress, young people.
The Empire State Building has taken steps towards becoming more energy efficient, which is really incredible to see because it's such a New York City institution, And if they can take steps towards lessening the climate crisis, it makes you believe that anyone can.
When you come to the Climate Museum, House 18 on Governor's Island, there will be high school docents in each of the 3 rooms. The first room is about the main things we can do to actually help the climate, and those are smart land use, energy efficiency, and clean energy. And we have hands-on exhibits for each of those ideas. In the second room, you will see the obstacles to climate change, basically why we haven't made the changes that we need to do. And in the third room, you can take action against climate change yourself. This is the most important thing facing the world right now, and I think it's very important that people get more involved around the world, outside of just the youth. Ever since I started learning about the ozone layer and different things that are affecting the environment way back in like 2nd and 3rd grade, I've always felt like it was a very important issue that we need to deal with. And then it's just gotten worse and worse, and fewer people have been speaking about it. And then I was looking for a way to actually get involved, and my dad told me that there was this climate museum. Now I've worked here this whole summer, and now I'm doing shifts over the weekend while I'm in school. Governor's Island is only open certain months out of the year, and these buildings are only accessible those months. We're looking to get more investors so we can get a more permanent location.
Well, good for you guys.
This is really great.
Maybe the young people can make a change.
Everybody can make a change.
Everybody can, there you go. Everybody can make a change. That's the tagline, right?
They're young, restless, and changing the future right in the present. Thanks for watching Going In. If you'd like to check out previous episodes, you can find us online at youtube.com/BRIC TV. Bye now.
Climate emergency. Learn about the climate emergency. You don't want to shy away from the truth, and the truth is that we have a climate emergency.
The idea is that we get our neighbors to know what we're doing and how serious the crisis really is, so that they want to join us. So we have more people, and more people as a movement.
The people are ready to follow our lead. We'll put an end to the violence.
This is the ultimate issue.